Good afternoon from a very hot and sunny La Genevois. So I wanted to talk to you today about some common mistakes that French people make in English. So the first one is something I hear at the beginning of every year when I'm getting to know my students. I always have one or two students who tell me, Mrs. Gezard, I have 17 years. So there are two mistakes in a sentence. First of all, you know that we do not use the verb to have in English when we're speaking about how old we are. So you should say, I am 17 years old. That's the second mistake. You either say I am 17 years old or you say I'm 17, but not I am 17 years. And may I just add that I really love saying that sentence, even if it hasn't been true for quite a few years now. Secondly, when you come late to class, you often give me direct translation and you say, excuse me for my late. Right, you should say, I'm sorry that I'm late, Mrs. Cazot, please forgive me. And then I wanted to talk to you about the verb to assume. So, in French, j'assume means something completely different to in English. In English, if I assume something, it means that I take something to be true without really having any scientific or proper proof for it. So, an example is if we're in class and you're rummaging through your bag looking for some homework that you just can't find, I often assume that you haven't done the work. So if this is the case, and you have in fact not done your homework and I'm threatening to give you a 0, what you should say to me is, Mrs. Cazot, I did not do my homework. I assume responsibility for that, or I take full responsibility for that. Please give me a 0. May I add that this has never happened in my entire teaching career. Another one. When I ask you if you agree with me or not, you often say, I am agree or I am not agree. Remember that in English, there is no need for the verb to be in this phrase. Okay, it's I agree, I don't agree, or I disagree. Right, then you have aussi in French, which is to, T-O-O, also or as well. All of these mean aussi. It's just where we put them in the sentence that's different. So, for example, to and as well go at the end of the sentence, whereas also goes before the verb or the adjective. So you could say, he speaks French and he also speaks English. Or you could say, she speaks Zulu and she speaks Afrikaans too. Right, also remember that in French, les actualités is what you see at 8 o'clock on France 2, but in English, this is the news. All right, and actuellement in English does not mean the same thing. Actuellement means in fact in English. And if you want to say actuellement in English, you would have to say currently or now or at the moment. So for example, at the moment or currently, there are no cinemas or theatres open in France. And the last one is the difference between every and all. So every day, every time is chaque jour, à chaque fois. All the time is tout le temps. So, for example, I could say that every time I take my dog for a walk, I make a video for my students. I could also say that my daughter complains all the time about her homework. I could also say, every time my daughter gets homework from her teachers, she complains. So do you see the difference? Anyway, I hope that clears up some things that are a bit confusing for you. Now, enjoy the rest of the sunny day and do not forget tonight to have a look at the night sky because there's going to be a full moon and apparently it's going to be pink.